aren't allowed to own land in the Philippines doesn't mean that there aren't a few ways to actually own land here as a foreigner. Evan, that sounds pretty illegal. I get it. It may sound like I'm about to present you with 5 different Goodfellas type loopholes for you to own land here as a foreigner, but I promise you, all 5 ways we're about to talk about are completely legal.
Do you want the latest information for Philippine expats and expat bloggers? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to this Sunday's edition of Expat News, where I cover the latest stories and events affecting expats and the expat blogger community in the Philippines. Well, hi, I'm Eric, and welcome to my Island Expats channel. Just as a reminder, these expat news videos come out first thing Sunday mornings U.S. time. So let's start this week's edition with some recent highlights happening for both expats and expat vloggers in the Philippines.
For 8 hours on Sunday, fire engulfed the slum community in Manila's Tondo district. When it was over, 1,000 homes were reduced to debris. Hours later, smoke was still visible on the horizon, a painful reminder for those spending the night on the street outside the neighborhood.
We didn't think the fire would reach us because the wind was blowing the other way, but it changed direction and now all the houses here are gone.
But some people still went in and out of the scene of the fire, hoping to salvage what they can. Authorities are investigating the cause of the fire and say it spread quickly because houses made of light materials were built close to each other. The narrow alleyways also made it difficult for firefighters to get in. The government had to deploy helicopters and boats to help battle the blaze. People who are camped out say it isn't the first time they've lost their homes to a fire, and they say they can't rebuild their homes and lives without help. At the very least, they say the government is providing them with meals. They're grateful, even if they're having to eat in the dark.
3 suspects have been arrested in connection with the kidnapping of an American man in the Philippines. 26-year-old Elliot Eastman from Vermont posted about his time in the country on YouTube and shared that he married a woman he met there in 2023. They were living in Cebuco, a coastal town in the southern Philippines. He had also started a business.
This is my Wi-Fi business. This is how I make an income here.
Police believe Eastman, who was shot in the leg, is still alive.
As we wait to hear more about the deportation plans from the incoming Trump administration, the Philippine ambassador to the U.S. is telling Filipino immigrants without status here to come back home. NBC4's Makalo Medina is live in Long Beach, where he spoke with members of the Filipino community today. Matt.
Yeah, Jonathan, a lot of those Filipinos came here to the Filipino Migrant Center in North Long Beach to figure out exactly what that means coming from the ambassador. They were shocked to hear it, many of them afraid of what to do next.
The Philippine ambassador should not have said those things because it causes unnecessary panic in our community.
Romeo Hebron says he was flooded with calls and walk-ins to the Migrant Center here in North Long Beach once Filipinos heard this from their ambassador.
Well, my advice to them is to immediately leave voluntarily, because once you're deported, you can never come back to the United States.
Certainly blunt advice, but not entirely correct. Being caught without authorization in the U.S. brings a 10-year ban against returning legally. Still, the message was clear. Leave now before being caught up in President-elect Trump's mass deportation threats.
My advice is for them not to wait to be deported.
There are about 4 million Filipinos in the U.S., and our estimate is that 1 in 4 is undocumented.
That's between 200 and 300,000 Filipinos. And many have been in the U.S. for decades with mixed status families, like a grandmother Hebron talked with after she heard that from the ambassador.
She's been here in West Long Beach for over 30 years. She's really planted her roots here, and this is her home. And so she was wondering if she's going to get deported or not.
What many fear the most is family separation. The Migrant Center held a Know Your Rights session Monday, advising immigrants of legal options and their rights if they engage with ICE officers, preparing them for the possibility of deportation, how to keep families informed, safe, and most importantly, how to keep them together.
People are afraid.
Yeah, people are afraid, not just here in the Filipino undocumented community, but a lot of migrant communities all across Southern California. We still do not know exactly what the incoming administration will do when it comes to immigration and their threats of mass deportation. Although the border czar that's been appointed by the president-elect says they're finalizing those plans this week, and we should know more.
Trump Tower in Makati. Why Trump Tower? Before we talk about why I picked Trump Tower, let's make one thing clear. Donald Trump doesn't own the building. He didn't buy the land. He had nothing to do with the construction. In 2011, while Donald Trump was on a TV show called The Apprentice, a licensing agreement was made to put his name on the building. Why the heck would somebody want Donald Trump's name on a building? Because it had a cachet to it, and it meant they could charge more for the condos in the building. That is what his name bought, and that is why it was put on the building.
OFWs left the Philippines for the American dream. But what if that dream is now found in the Philippines? The Philippines' greatest export is its people. Filipinos power key industries worldwide, being the largest exporter of nurses and seafarers. And overseas Filipino workers send back over $33 billion annually, nearly 10% of the country's GDP. Imagine if every 10th store in your town was built entirely by money sent from Filipinos working abroad. That's how big their impact is. Some OFWs make their host countries their new homes. Some return to the Philippines to retire, and others come back after a few years. But why do Filipinos need to leave to find success? And why must families be separated to survive? There's a growing trend of reverse migration. Filipinos, including Filams, Filipino Canadians, and third culture kids from places like the Middle East and Japan are moving back to their motherland. And this signals a very good phenomenon occurring, opportunity in the Philippines. So if better economic opportunities are found in the Philippines, are they accessible to everyone, both foreigners and fellow Pinoys? What's driving the return? True opportunity or forced repatriation? And can the American dream be found instead in the Philippines?
And now it's time for the video of the week. This is where I give you a summarized version of one of the best videos I came across in the entire week. So let's take a look.
First way to acquire and legally own land here in the Philippines as a foreigner, which is by far the most common and popular way, is to be married to a Filipino citizen. Needless to say, one of the primary reasons why expats move to the Philippines is to find companionship in a partner. And if you fall into that demographic and happen to be married to a Filipino citizen, then you can legally own land here. But here's the catch. The certificate title of the land that you purchase would be in the name of your Filipino spouse. Listen, if you're 100% sure that you and your spouse will be together forever and ever, then everything is 100% fine and dandy. But hear me out. My only concern is that if things don't happen to work out in your relationship, then you undergo the risk of her outright owning your entire property that you bought. So yes, you as a foreigner have purchased and acquired the land with your own money, but technically, in reality, you don't own it. Matter of fact, your name may be included in the contract or the deed of sale, but it will not be included in the TCT or the land title. Essentially, when it comes down to it, you have no legal say with anything that has to do with the property, even though you're the one who purchased it. So technically, your spouse can legally sell the property, rent out the property, and basically just do whatever she wants with it without your permission. For me personally, owning, but technically at the end of the day, not owning the property that I bought and not having a say in it is not worth it. Now, in the event of the death of your Filipino spouse, you as a foreigner would become the natural heir of the property. But since foreigners are not allowed to own land, you have a few options of what you can do with the property. Number one, you can sell the property and collect the proceeds of the sale. Number two, you can pass the ownership to the children or any other legal heirs. And lastly, if you and your spouse are childless, you can pass the ownership to any other legal relatives of your spouse. Now, moving on to the second way to acquire land in the Philippines as a foreigner that often goes overlooked because of the legal hassle, that is by purchasing through a corporation. This is a completely valid and legal loophole to own land in the Philippines as a foreigner through the creation of a domestic corporation. So how would you go about doing this? In short, this requires the establishment of a company to be registered with the SEC, or in other words, the Securities and Exchange Commission. And if you're interested, I can make a whole separate video on incorporating your business with the SEC. Now, even if you can purchase properties through your corporation, it does come with a major caveat, which the only requirement is that the corporation must abide by the 40% foreign ownership rule. This basically means that a Filipino citizen must have majority ownership within your corporation, at least 60% of the stake within your company. Then, once you're approved by the SEC, then you can go about purchasing any type of real estate, be it land, house and lot, condominium units, and even commercial properties. This can all be purchased by you legally. And so as part of this corporation, foreigners can enjoy the use and benefits of an acquired property in the Philippines. However, unless you're planning on starting your own big real estate investing company here, this comes with a lot of major downsides. The first obvious advantage is that the combined stake of your corporation is limited to only 40%. So technically, just like if you were to marry a Filipino spouse, you wouldn't be able to own 100% of the property. You would only own 40% at max. Now, upon dissolution or selling the corporation, the foreigner is entitled to receive his proportionate share of the remaining assets in the company. So once the land is sold, the cash will be distributed to the foreigners according to their stake in the company. Of course, another disadvantage is that if you don't have any Filipino contacts to go into business with you to take up 60% of that corporation, then you can't even buy land here and start that corporation in the first place. Now, moving on to the third special case here, wherein you can own land here in the Philippines as a foreigner. That is, if you're a natural-born citizen. Essentially, this is a special case that isn't applicable to any of you that were born or raised apart from the Philippines. However, natural-born Filipinos who have lost their Filipino citizenship and have later acquired a foreign citizenship are legally allowed to own land here in the Philippines under the 1987 Constitution. So first things first, what's a natural-born Filipino? The Philippine Constitution defines a natural-born Filipino as a citizen of the Philippines from birth without having to perform any act to acquire or perfect their Philippine citizenship. People that fall into this category are those who were born in the Philippines at the adoption of the 1987 Constitution. Second, those born after 1973 whose fathers and mothers were born as Filipino citizens. And lastly, those who have acquired dual citizenship. Essentially, if you were born as a Philippine citizen during the time of 1987 or before that, and you had that Filipino citizenship before acquiring a foreign citizenship, then you are legally allowed to own land here. My dad, for example, would be a special case like this. He was born in the Philippines with a Filipino citizenship, and when he turned 1 year old, he later moved to the US and acquired an American citizenship. So although he was never raised in the Philippines or even spent a significant time of his life within this country, since he was formerly a Filipino citizen, he is legally allowed to own land here. Now, there are limitations to your rights to legally own land in the Philippines as a natural-born Filipino. First off, the lot area limits for land being used for residential property cannot exceed over 1,000 square meters for urban land. And if you're looking to purchase rural land as a natural-born Filipino, you cannot buy any more than 1 hectare of land. And the lot area limits for business and commercial purposes cannot exceed over 5,000 square meters of urban land. And if you're looking to buy rural land, you cannot purchase more than 3 hectares of rural land. Now, bear in mind that natural-born citizens can technically own more land than the amount I just mentioned, meaning the maximum amount of land lots that can be purchased is only applicable to 1 municipality. Say, however, you reach your max amounts of square meters and hectares in a certain municipality or city. You then can purchase land in any other municipality or city as long as it doesn't exceed the maximum amount that I just mentioned. Moving on to the fourth way that foreigners can acquire land legally, which also happens to be a very rare case, that is if it's acquired by hereditary succession. If you're a foreign citizen that happens to have any Filipino relatives or citizens that are Filipino, then you can potentially fall into this category. But as it is, most of you watching probably don't have Filipino relatives looking to pass down some property. In the 1987 Constitution, there's a minor exception that allows heirs to own the property even if that heir is a foreign citizen. Simply speaking, if a foreign citizen is a legal or natural heir by hereditary succession, and it was included within the last will and succession of the property owner, then that foreigner is allowed by Philippine law to acquire said real estate. Now, for the fifth and last way that foreigners can own property in the Philippines, that is by purchasing a condo. We're all well aware that the only form of property that foreigners can own in this country is condo units. And simply put, this is the most common way that foreigners own property here. Now, bear in mind, if you're heavily investing in condos here, the same 40% foreign ownership rule still applies. Essentially, foreign citizens are allowed to buy condo units in any condominium project as long as the foreign ownership doesn't exceed 40% of that condo project. Say, for example, a condo is offering 100 units for sale. Well, in that case, you wouldn't be allowed to buy any more than 40 units within that project, which honestly shouldn't really be a problem unless you're a big investor. Now, bear in mind, this 40% ownership rule is combined between all foreigners buying in this project. All right, let's use an example. Say, for instance, you have 20 Chinese owners of the unit, you have 15 European owners, and you have 5 Australian owners. That's already a total of 40 units bought within that 100-unit condo. That's 40% threshold that has already been met, so therefore you wouldn't be able to buy any more condos within that unit. Any more above that, say 41 units or more within that condo, would be illegal and a violation to the law. Now, for the last question that we're going to address, can foreigners with an SRRV visa own land here? First off, an SRRV visa stands for a Special Resident Retirees Visa, which, as the name suggests, is for foreign retirees. Foreign nationals who obtain these visas get the privilege to reside indefinitely in this country with free entry and free exit. It's important to note, however, that if you're 50 years old or older, it'll cost you $20,000 to obtain this visa. So back to the question, can SRRV holders own land in the Philippines? Well, according to the Philippine Retirement Authority, or the PRA, foreign nationals who obtain this visa are unfortunately unable to own land and real estate in the Philippines. If a foreigner with this visa is married to a Filipino spouse, as mentioned earlier, the same rules apply. They would have to put the land title under their spouse's name. And same goes for natural-born Filipinos who have acquired a foreign citizenship. They'd also be able to own property and land here. And so there you have it, savvy expats. That basically answers your question as to if foreigners are even allowed to own property here in the Philippines and how they can own property here in the Philippines. As a parent, the option to own land in the Philippines as a foreigner is very minimal and in most cases not even worth it. If you're a purebred foreigner with zero ties to the Philippines and Filipino citizens, essentially there is no case where you're going to be able to own 100% of the property. The only property that you can fully outright own is a condo unit.
And now for our Every Couple Has a Story segment.
I'm on my way to LA right now, and I'm going to go get on an airplane, and I'm going to fly to the Philippines to meet a girl. A few years ago, my 20-year marriage ended in a split second when I least expected it. I was 46 years old, heartbroken and hopeless. I never wanted to trust another woman again, and my life felt meaningless and impossible to start over. Until I met Joy. So nervous. Now, I never thought I would want to date someone online all the way around the world and have a long-distance relationship, but in this case, it seemed like she was really worth it. This relationship was really worth the effort of just trying to go and meet her. We were really curious if it would be the same in person as it was over the internet. So we talked about this a bunch of times. We were hoping to capture it all on film. I'd have my GoPro. She'd be filming on our camera. And when we met at the airport for the first time, we would capture this amazing moment when we first embraced. And, well, that's basically all I got on film. So let me rewind it, because I was filming on a GoPro, and I actually did capture a lot more than I thought I did. Waiting for somebody. And then Joy started filming, and I'll splice our footage together here.
Where is he?
Right here, I actually caught Joy getting out of her car, see?
Bye.
And then Joy is filming me right here. And then you can see Joy walking towards me. And then,
Hey.
for me, this is the coolest part. My GoPro was filming at 60 frames per second. And so I was able to get a really nice clean shot of how excited Joy was to meet me. And from that moment on, we put our cameras down and we just enjoyed the day together. We only took a couple pictures. I hadn't slept in 24 hours, and Joy actually had a fever for the last 3 days. From then on, we were inseparable. It was the best vacation I've ever had. And I found myself falling in love with the Philippines. I found my smile. And most importantly, I found love that I never thought I could find. Her name is Joy, and my name is Jason. Welcome to Province Smile.
Let's finish up this week with the Expat Lightning Round. Where I quickly cover interesting clips from expat-related channels.
Can I give you a ticket?
What?
Can I give you a ticket?
Yes!
Because you want a ticket to anywhere.
Can I ask you a question? Can I go with you? Ah! Yeah! Oh my gosh!
It is a honeymooner special. The best burger I've had in the Philippines. We are traveling in style. Keith bought a new Hilux, which is like the luxury status car here in the Philippines. There's our shuttle we're about to take to Camigan Island.
Double honeymoon.
Our good friend Keith and his 2-day-old bride, Crush, right here. Say hello, Crush.
Hello.
How does it feel to be married 2 days now?
So very happy.
And one of the 2 days since you've been married, you slept at our house.
We're so pleased.
Well, thank you. And you called me, and you were a subscriber, Keith, and that's how we met you, and you came to our wedding, and now we're both newlyweds. Yep. And the newlyweds go to Camigan Islands.
Today I have a very special guest, Chad Foster. He also do a lot of content in YouTube. And what really draws me, or what intrigues me to collaborate with you, Chad, is the tagline that I saw in your Facebook, which is escaping the West to find a more meaningful life overseas. Tell me more about that.
You like that, eh?
I love that.
Yeah, it just came to me. Yeah, it's just basically that. I was living what most people would say a pretty decent life over there. I had a decent job and I had a house and I lived in a pretty cool area, but I wasn't fulfilled. I think a lot of it had to do with a bit of that grind mentality. You know, you got to pay the bills, the mortgage. A lot of your time is spent working. The cost of living is high. And I also wasn't just loving what I was doing. Like I had an occupational therapist, and working in healthcare over the years can kind of grind you down. It's tiring. And the same with a lot of the nurses that I knew and other therapists and doctors. I was burnt out and I needed a change. And I had a lot of days where I didn't wake up in the morning with any feeling of like excitement to just go to work. And I would meet people every once in a while that had that. And I'm like, I need that. Like I need to figure something out. But then I was like, how do I get out of this like cycle that I'm in? How do I find the time and the energy to start something new? And yeah, basically the whole thing came about from knowing some other Filipinos that I worked with, introducing me to the Philippines through conversation, realizing how beautiful a place it was, learning about the cost of living, And then after going through a breakup, my buddy who's from Leyte that lives in Florida, where I was working with him, he was like, well, do you know much about Filipinas? He's like, if you like petite, cute, caring, loyal type girls. And I'm like, tell me more. Yeah, he kind of sold me. He sold me on a lot of these things, right? So I started looking into it. And yeah, I was burnt out in dating there too, not just my work. And so it just got me this feeling of excitement, of something new, something different. And yeah, there's a whole story with that. But basically, to fast forward, I came over and started the YouTube channel right away. And the rest is history.
And they are incredibly short. I think the average height for the woman in the Philippines is like 5 foot, and the average height for a guy is 5'4". So if you're a short king, 5'5", 5'4", it's quite easy to find a partner there. Shout out all my short kings. They're also super fun at parties. They're out there dancing, they're singing, their karaoke is always brought out in Filipino parties. So they're just always having a very good time.
For me, is one of the most ideal expat bubbles in the Philippines to live, and I'm just gonna take you around and show you why I think so. Check this out. This is the entrance to the SM Mall here in Iloilo City, Mega World. Got the fountains, a beautiful area here. It's like the expat destination, I tell you. SM Mall here in Iloilo City, very nice. A lot of great shops. It's got a skywalk that crosses over to another section. And yeah, I'll show you real quick here. This is the outside deck of the mall here with restaurants.
So that will do it for this edition of Expat News. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notifications button so you can be notified of future videos once they're available. I'm always interested in your thoughts on these expat news and other videos. So please let me know in the comments section your thoughts of this edition. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.